The rain poured relentlessly, the kind of rain that made the world feel like it was crying. In the middle of the deserted street, a shivering golden retriever sat, his fur matted and his eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. His name was Jack, and he had been abandoned, left to fend for himself in a world that had turned its back on him. But fate had other plans. Just as the cold began to seep into his bones, a soft voice called out, "Hey there, buddy. You look like you could use a friend." And with those words, the lives of Jack and Jackline would change forever. Jackline had always been a girl with a heart too big for her small town. She was the kind of person who would stop to help a stranded turtle cross the road or spend her last dollar on a sandwich for a homeless man. But even with her boundless compassion, she had always felt a void in her life. A void that no amount of kindness to others could fill. That was until she met Jack. It was a rainy evening when Jackline first saw him. She was on her way home from work, her umbrella barely shielding her from the downpour, when she spotted the dog sitting in the middle of the road. At first, she thought he was a statue, but then she saw his eyes, those deep, soulful eyes that seemed to be pleading for help. "Hey there, buddy," she said softly, kneeling down beside him. Jack looked at her, his tail giving a hesitant wag. "You look like you could use a friend." She reached out her hand, and after a moment of hesitation, Jack nuzzled it. That was all it took. Jackline knew she couldn't leave him there. She took off a scarf and wrapped it around him, shielding him from the rain. "Come on, Jack," she said, deciding on the spot that that would be his name. "Let's get you home." Jackline's apartment was small but cozy, filled with a kind of warmth that only comes from a place that's truly lived in. She quickly set about making Jack feel at home, drying him off with a towel and giving him a bowl of warm milk. As he lapped it up, she couldn't help but smile. There was something about him, something that made her feel like she had finally found what she had been missing. Over the next few days, Jackline and Jack became inseparable. She took him to the vet, who confirmed that he was healthy but had clearly been through a lot. Jackline didn't care about his past. All that mattered was that he was safe now. She bought him a soft bed, a collar with a little bone-shaped tag, and even a few toys. Jack, for his part, seemed to understand that he had been given a second chance. He followed Jackline everywhere, his tail wagging furiously whenever she so much as looked at him. But it wasn't just Jack who was healing. Jackline found that having him around made her feel less alone. She had always been surrounded by people, but there was something about the unconditional love of a dog that filled a different kind of void. Jack didn't care if she had a bad day at work or if she was feeling down. He was just happy to be with her, and that was enough. As the weeks turned into months, the bond between Jack and Jackline grew stronger. They developed their own little routines. Morning walks in the park, lazy afternoons on the couch, and late-night cuddles when the world felt too big and scary. Jackline would often talk to Jack, telling him about her dreams and fears. And even though he couldn't respond, she felt like he understood. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Jackline turned to Jack and said, "You know, Jack, I think you're my soulmate." Jack tilted his head, as if to say, "Of course I am." Jackline laughed, but deep down, she knew it was true. Jack had come into her life at a time when she needed him most, and he had filled a void she didn't even know she had. But as much as Jackline loved Jack, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something missing. She had always dreamed of finding love, the kind of love that made your heart skip a beat and your stomach do flips. And as much as she adored Jack, she knew he couldn't give her that. One day, while out on their usual walk, Jackline and Jack stumbled upon a small cafe they had never noticed before. It was tucked away in a quiet corner of the town, with a sign that read "Pause and Coffee." Intrigued, Jackline decided to check it out. As they entered, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods filled the air. The place was cozy, with a few tables and a counter where customers could order. But what caught Jackline's eye was the man behind the counter. He was tall, with dark hair and a smile that could light up a room. And when he saw Jack, his face lit up even more. "Well, hello there," he said, coming out from behind the counter to kneel down in front of Jack. "Aren't you a handsome boy?" Jack wagged his tail, clearly enjoying the attention. "This is Jack," Jackline said, feeling a little shy. "And I'm Jackline." The man looked up at her, his smile widening. "I'm Alex. It's nice to meet you, Jackline. And you too, Jack." As they chatted, Jackline learned that Alex was the owner of the cafe, which was not only a place for people to enjoy coffee but also a haven for dogs. He had always loved animals and wanted to create a space where people could bring their furry friends. Jackline found herself drawn to Alex's warmth and kindness. He had a way of making her feel at ease, and she couldn't help but notice how good he was with Jack. As they talked, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a spark. Over the next few weeks, Jackline found herself visiting the cafe more and more. Each time, Alex would greet her with that same warm smile, and Jack would wag his tail in excitement. It didn't take long for Jackline to realize that she was falling for Alex. One evening, as they sat at a table with Jack curled up at their feet, Alex reached across the table and took Jackline's hand. "I know this might sound crazy," he said, "but I feel like I've known you forever. You and Jack, you've brought so much joy into my life." Jackline felt her heart skip a beat. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "You've made me feel things I haven't felt in a long time." As they leaned in for their first kiss, Jack let out a soft woof, as if giving his approval. Jackline laughed, feeling like her heart was about to burst with happiness. From that day on, Jackline, Jack, and Alex became inseparable. They spent their days at the cafe, their evenings on long walks, and their nights curled up together on the couch. Jackline had finally found the love she had been searching for, and Jack had found a family. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Jackline turned to Alex and said, "You know, I used to think that Jack was my soulmate. But now I realize that he was just the bridge that brought me to you." Alex smiled, pulling her close, "And I'll always be grateful to him for that." As they sat there, with Jack resting his head on Jackline's lap, she realized that life had a funny way of working out. Sometimes, the things you think you're missing are just around the corner, waiting for the right moment to come into your life. And for Jackline, that moment had come in the form of a shivering golden retriever and a man with a smile that could light up the world. Years passed, and Jackline, Alex, and Jack built a life filled with love, laughter, and countless memories. They traveled together, explored new places, and even opened a second cafe in a nearby town. But no matter where they went or what they did, one thing remained constant: their love for each other. Jack grew older, his once golden fur now speckled with gray. But his eyes still sparkled with the same joy they had the day Jackline found him. And when the time finally came for him to cross the rainbow bridge, Jackline and Alex were by his side, holding his paw and whispering words of love. As they said their final goodbyes, Jackline felt a peace she hadn't expected. She knew that Jack had lived a life full of love and happiness, and that he would always be with them in spirit. And as she looked at Alex, she realized that Jack had given her the greatest gift of all, a love that would last a lifetime.